everybody, welcome back to Bison Workshop. I'm Bob, and today we're going to continue on the Troy build. The reason I'm building this one is because I just don't trust that John Deere with that plastic rear end. It cost too much for that rear end. It was $370 by the time it was to the door, and if I break it, I can't sell it. So I'm going to sell it, and we're going to use this one. So we've done a lot of work to this. I had to make the brackets for the gas tank. I had to get a new seat. The other one was destroyed. As you can see, can't have that. And then we got another hood for it. It's a newer hood. It's not a horse, but it's a pony, but it fit perfect. So we got the headlights in it. I got to get a bulb for this side because this one's blowed. But he had two of those hoods. One of them was really bright, shiny red, and he brought it out to sell it to me, and I said, "Where's the other one? The one that was faded?" He said, "Well, I thought you wanted a new one." I said, "No, I want it to match. So if mine's faded, I want that to be faded." So it don't look like it's a bright red hood. Now we've got a lot of work to do to the fender. Basically, because this is all rusted out right here, we're just going to mask this off right straight across here and come down into here and around, and we're going to paint all this part black because there's rubber pads that goes on this. And we're going to do the same thing to here and just take and paint a square to cover all that rust. And but I've got it off because I need to put a belt, a drive belt on it, and I'm waiting on that to come. So right now we're going to see if we can get this thing to run. I've added a bolt gauge right here, and I don't like that cap. It don't fit very good, but it does amps and volts. So when I turn the key switch on, it comes on. You got 12.9 volts, 0 amps being used. So when I turn the headlights on, well, the headlights ain't hooked up, so it's not going to show anything. And then you got a USB. So then you can actually see through that cap, but it don't fit very good. So I'm getting ready to trip over my cleaning stuff. So I've heard of these switches being burnt out really quick. So to keep that from happening, I added a relay, a fused relay, so that it will run the clutch. So this will handle more current than this will. So we added a relay to that. I did an oil change, new spark plugs, new oil filter, new air filter, and everything seems to be in order. I've put oil in it, and I put about that much gas in it. So now we get to test it out and see how she's going to run. So cross your fingers, guys. I haven't heard this thing run yet. Well, I heard it run for about 2 seconds, and that was it. But now that we got gas in it, it should run longer now. So we're going to see if we get gas into our fuel filter. Alright, so we're using starting fluid. not getting no gas, so I'm thinking maybe the fuel pump may be bad. So let's try this one more time. Yeah, it don't look like it's trying to pump any fuel. Well, I guess we gotta change the fuel pump, and I got one. So let me change that fuel pump and we'll try it again. Alright guys, we got a new fuel pump on it, and I pulled the line off and let it get fuel in it, so it's got fuel down to it. So let's see if we can't get this to run again. Idled down. Might have got a good motor. Yeah, it ain't smoking no more. Let me turn it off. We don't need to be wasting any gas. We know it runs. All right. But yeah, I turned it on its side back here in the backyard so I could pressure wash underneath of it, because I knew I was going to have to work underneath of it with the clutch and the pulley. I've got the pulleys and everything cleaned up, the clutch, And forgive the mess in my shop. I've got a hell of a mess. So we cleaned up the clutch. I gotta take this tape off of it. So we got the clutch cleaned up. We got the pads. And the deck will be the last thing that gets done. I've got all the parts for it right there. So that comes with all these. So now we can go ahead and put the hood back on it. Where'd I put the hood? Over here. Alright, it misses the muffler. It's got that plastic lip on the bottom of it. But the tank in this thing was way back in there, and I went and cut this out right here so that I could get into it and get the cap off of it. Probably could stand to be cut out a little bit further, but that's just to modify and just to make things a little easier on you. But we put a new tie rod on it. We rebuilt the steering column because the bushing was bad, and I happened to have one. I don't know how I ended up with one, but so I can't do nothing yet. I don't want to put the fender on it until I've got all the belts where they are. I've got this belt new in here, and we're waiting for the drive belt and the deck belt and the pulleys for underneath here. We got 2 idler pulleys underneath here that needs to be replaced because the bearings are bad. So let's see if she'll start back up one more time. My God, I don't know how to act. My Husky is down again. I went out there to mow the grass. I ended up having to use the John Deere because the Husky, it won't even click. So I think we got a wiring issue on it. So hopefully I have this back together by the time I need to mow again, and we'll use this 50-inch deck. But right now I'm just using a 4-wheeler battery, which should be fine. 12 volt, no matter how you look at it. So that's what we're using, is a 4-wheeler battery. It's a pretty new battery. So I took this shield off because it was god-awful ugly looking, and it was just in the way. It was keeping the hood from opening further. I'd actually like it to open a little bit further, but I don't want it to hit the muffler because it's pretty close, probably about that close to it. And if I go forward a little bit further, it'll be closer. I don't want it so close that when you go to put the hood up that it melts it. So we're trying to keep parts from going bad. But we got a new oil filter on it, new oil change, new plugs, new fuel filter or fuel pump, new fuel filter, new oil, new breather filter, new tie rod, new gauge. And we're just going to plug this hole over here until someday I might need it for something else. You never know. So I'll just 3D print a plate to put over that and clip it in, and that'll be done. But the steering is real tight. A little loose up here, but that's because it's going in that hole. It actually needs to be I've got another thing that I could probably put there to, it's a bushing that actually screws to the plastic, but I don't know if I got enough room. I'd have to cut off some of this bottom here, but that's fine. All it is just slop in this whole top hole. But the steering is tight, man. When you turn it, it's ready to turn, so it's pretty tight. And that's actually not a bad looking seat. So I can't drive it until I get the belts. So had to put a bearing in my truck yesterday. I went to the store and all of a sudden the damn rear end the front rear end started acting like it was gonna lock up. And this is what I pulled out of that's the cage for the bearing. And that's all the bearings. And there's the race for the bearing and the seal. So yeah, I had to replace that side. And when they built this truck, they put mix match stuff in it. This side on the driver's side or passenger side had a full-time lock or full-time four-wheel drive hub. The other side had a locking on it, and it was a cheap one. So when I first got this truck about 10 years ago, maybe less, 8 or 10, I had to replace them hubs and put the M&Ms on it. And but the other thing that they did to this truck was on the driver's side, when I had to pack the bearings on it, I had y'all up in the air. When I had to repack the bearings in it, I had to replace the locking nuts, the spindle nuts. It's got 2 nuts and a ring with all these holes all the way around it. And I put those in place of the junk locking. It's supposed to be a self-locking nut that you push in and turn until it's locked, and when you pull it out, it springs back into to lock it in place. I don't like those. I like to know that mine's not coming out with that little pin and that washer. So it's double nutted on that side. But then when I got to this side, I was going to replace the bearings on it, and I've got them. I bought them about 2 years ago and just now getting them in. So when I went to go take this one off, it wasn't the same. It had a big old freaking 6-point nut on it. So I don't have that socket, and I got to figure out how to get it out of there, because I'm not going to replace it, or I'm not going to put that back in. I'm going to replace it with the regular, this locking ring right here. So at least it's still drivable. This side needs to be packed and new bearings put in it, because it's pretty bad shape too. But at least I can drive it up to the store and back. But this is done for now until I can get some parts and get it all back together. So the next thing I need to do is the deck. So let's go look at that deck. And don't be looking at my pretty grass and be all envious and stuff, because I'll take my grass very serious. You cut a blade of my grass, it's like cutting a family member. I tried out my pump yesterday, or day before yesterday, when I was power washing my mower, and that pump works really good. I got that quick connect on it now, So now I can just take the hose off of it without unscrewing it, and you're not wearing out no threads. But this deck's in pretty bad shape, surface rust mostly. They did do some patching on this thing like I did, but they welded theirs in, and they didn't do too bad of a job. They could have done a little better job here on this, and I may trim that up to make it look like this so that it matches. It should look like this and that. So I'll probably take the file or grinder, start off with the grinder and start. I have to get a pattern of that and stick it on there and then draw it out and then grind that out just to make it look a little better. So, but we got to bend this back into place because it's bent down. This is bent a little bit here. We got to straighten that up. Other than that, I don't see a whole lot of problems with this deck. It's pretty solid. It's just got a lot of surface rust on it. So we're going to take care of that. And yes, it's going to be black. So we got it going. It's running. Every time I start a mower, I always have this sinking bad feeling that something's going to happen. This time it was pretty pleasurable. That thing started right up as soon as I got a new fuel pump on it. It wasn't pumping fuel, so figures I'd have to replace that too. Might as well replaced everything else. But hopefully this will be a good mower for me and last me for a good long time, as long as I keep it, the upkeep on it, and service it and take care of it, fix everything that breaks on it as it breaks. At least when I'm done with it, this thing will be a pretty nice mower, we hope. And it's starting to look really good that that's going to be the case. So the good part about this is I have that rear end right there. It's the same rear end that's underneath here. So it ain't gonna be like that John Deere and not have a rear end to put in it. That's metal. See, it's got the same rear end. But like I said, this belt here I just put on, it's a brand new one. And this one here looks like it got rolled one time. There's a round spot on it somewhere I seen. But it's all dry rotted and cracked. So because of this drive belt being so hard to put in, I decided that we're going to put new belts in this thing from the get-go. That way we don't have to take it back apart to put another belt in it. When if I'd have just done it to begin with, I wouldn't have had to take it apart twice. So we're trying to keep that from having to happen. So I didn't even have to choke the damn thing. Of course, I was spraying it with starting fluid. But yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy that that motor is good. Now let's just see how long it'll last. It should last long as I keep the upkeep on it. Should last pretty good. So I had a problem with the clutch, and I had to put new wires on it. And we're going to redo this because I have them reversed. Positive is supposed to be on this side. It still works, but positive is supposed to be on this side and negative is supposed to be on this side, and I've got it reversed. So basically I just got to take that loose and switch them. So then I got this. I'm going to have to do some trimming on it. I don't know how anybody chews something like that up. That looks like something a dog must have done that. Probably sitting on the seat chewing on it. On this. But I might have another one of these. I don't know. But we might make it thread it. I might thread it and make my own knobs for both sides. This one's the shifter. And This one is for the deck to lower it and raise it. So then I think I showed, no, I didn't show this. I put a steel plate on here. This here was bent way down. Well, I had to straighten it back up and it was kind of wavy. So I said, well, we can fix that. So I took a piece of 1/2-inch steel plate that I had bought for another project. So now I got to find another piece of metal. Well, I ain't got to find it. I got to cut it out of that piece up there. But I just cut it 45 on both sides and drilled a hole, milled a hole in it. And that's going to be pretty tough. So we now have a ball on it. But there it is, guys. The new Troy bilt is going to serve Bison Workshop pretty good, I hope. So thanks for hanging out, guys. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe. But you know what? Hold on. Let's open this here box and let's see if I've got everything I'm supposed to get. We'll set it here on the seat and see if we can't open this thing. Get me a razor blade. Put it up here on the seat so that when I miss, I'll hit my seat with the blade and cut a hole in it. This thing came from FedEx, and it's got some holes punched in it. I hope everything's okay. So we got 3 of these pulleys and spindles. And I hated to buy these, man, but for $90, I think it was like $90 or $110, something like that. It was the most expensive thing that I had to buy for this. But we got 3 of those. Let's set these down here. And here's the other one. And they got actual grease fittings on them. But it don't do no good to have a grease fitting on them because they never put no, they put a sealed bearing in it. So the grease actually can't get to your part. And they even put black tape on the threads. Alright, so we got 3 of those. Then we got, I think it only needs 2 pulleys, but there's 3 of them in here. So here's the idler pulleys. And then we got the blades. Whew. The back feels like it's ready to break in half, guys. Have a hard time holding myself up. Alright, so let's take all this saran wrap off. Because I need to cook me a steak, so I'm going to have to get me some saran wrap. Wow, this thing's all messed up. Why don't we just take a razor blade and cut down it. That'll work. The blades that was on it were bent all 2 pieces. They were facing down to the ground. Well, they sharpened the whole side. So we got 3 of those. Let me get the other one and I'll show you what they look like. Look how bent those are. Well, they're not too awful bent. My God, they look like they was bent. Well, they're a little bent. I could have probably straightened them, but the kit came with them, so I'm just going to replace them. I might keep those for spare and straighten them up. I'll straighten them up before I put these on so I can use these as a guide to where I want to straighten it. So there's the blades, and we'll do the deck in the next video. But I want to get this out of here and get the deck up on sawhorses in here so that we can do a nice video on rebuilding that deck. This handle right here that goes on this, it was all chewed up right here also. And I took a file and a grinder and ground it down a little bit and smoothed it out. And I'm gonna have to do the same thing to the other one. But anyway, it runs, so it's looking good for future. So don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe. You guys have a good one. Later.